24 hours before yesterday's game against Portland, shortly before the game started, they announced that Caitlin Clark will be out with a back injury. Now, my guess is fans immediately turned around, started the car up, and went vroom, vroom, vroom home, is what they did. Now, this is a very, very bad look for the Indiana Fever front office because, for the simple fact, they kind of ished on their fans again. Now, if we know history from the Fever, they're known for
The Indiana Fever organization is facing serious scrutiny following a series of decisions surrounding Caitlin Clark's absence from a recent home game, with financial penalties from the league appearing increasingly likely. The situation has continued to develop, and the details emerging paint a troubling picture of how the front office has managed communication with both fans and the league itself. The sequence of events began when the Fever submitted an injury report 24 hours before their game against Portland with no mention of Clark. Then, shortly before tip-off, the team announced she would not play due to a back issue. For fans who had already made their way to the arena or who were en route, the late notice was a significant problem. Attendance figures reflected the broader pattern.
History from the Fever, they're known for kind of ishing on their fans. And this, my friends, is not a good look. Not at all. Now, shout out to the homeboy Ben Daniel. Ben Daniel quickly, vigorously, fastly went to Twitter last night and he retweeted this. And guys, if you guys aren't following Ben Daniel, I highly recommend you guys do. He's one of, I would say, my co-worker at this point. And he said this: for the fourth straight Indiana.
Across 4 consecutive home games this season, crowd numbers came in at 17,000, 14,000, 14,000, and 14,000 respectively. A steady decline that predates the Clark absence announcement, but has only accelerated since. Game footage from the second quarter showed large portions of the arena sitting virtually empty, with entire rows occupied by single individuals and wide stretches of seats left completely unfilled. The league's own rules are clear on this matter. .m. Local time the day before any non-back-to-back game. .m.
Point. And he said this: for the fourth straight Indiana Fever home game this season, Fever Wings 17,000, Fever versus Mystic 14,000, Fever versus Storm 14,000, Fever versus Fire 14,000. You guys see a trend here? Because I definitely see a trend. They're losing fans by the thousands. Now, this was before it was announced Caitlin Clark had basically will not be there. Now, my thing about it is that I wanted to go to a game very, very soon.
On game day, the requirement covers any player whose availability might be affected for any reason. Did not align with those guidelines, which is where the potential for fines enters the picture. What made things considerably worse was the announcement that followed. Rather than the team taking a wait-and-see approach, Clark was immediately ruled out for the next game as well, against the Golden State Valkyries on Friday, without any updated evaluation process being mentioned. The question that immediately arose was straightforward. If the organization genuinely discovered the back problem on the day of the Portland game, how could they already be certain she would miss the following one without assessing how she responded over the next 24 to 48 hours?
Very, very soon, like next week type soon. And I just don't know if I'm going to go anymore. And that's simply because how they doing us fans, because y'all know I have solidarity with the fans, and how they're allowing Stephanie White to continue her callous behavior. Now, look at this right here, guys. Y'all remember yesterday when I told y'all that, hey, it was a lot of black seat in the stand, and I ain't talking about black people.
A legitimate injury management process typically involves monitoring, not immediate multi-game declarations. This inconsistency pointed many observers toward the conclusion that the situation had been known internally for longer than was being acknowledged. Clark had been observed during previous games, receiving back treatment on the sideline, sitting on cushioned support, and leaving one contest early with roughly 8 minutes remaining. None of those instances appeared on any official injury report. The pattern suggested the team had ongoing awareness of a physical concern that was never formally disclosed as required. Stephanie White's comments at a subsequent press conference drew immediate attention for a different reason.
Hey, it was a lot of black seat in the stand, and I ain't talking about black people. I'm talking about black leather from the empty seats. Look at this. Look at this, man. Look at all of these seats. I mean, there look like it's rows of people sitting by themselves. Look at this. This whole row, somebody just sitting by themselves. Look at this. This is ridiculous. This is in the second quarter of the game, bro.
When asked why Clark had not appeared on the injury report, particularly given that she had not practiced the day before the game, White stated that missing practice does not automatically trigger an injury report listing, and added that Clark had not practiced that day. The problem was that visual evidence from the previous day's practice session appeared to show Clark on the court, directly contradicting that claim. Whether the statement reflected a miscommunication or something more deliberate, the contradiction was noticed immediately and spread quickly. White also addressed the question of potential fines directly, saying she did not believe the organization would face penalties. That assessment runs against how several analysts and informed observers have read the situation. With a missed reporting deadline, a last-minute scratch of the league's most marketable player, and now a public statement that appears to conflict with documented evidence, the organization may be looking at violations across multiple counts rather than just one.
This is in the second quarter of the game, bro. People packed it up and went home. Packed it up and went home. Oh, this is a cold image here, bro. Even though they shouldn't have Caitlin Clark smoking a cigarette, but that's still a cold image. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. So you guys remember yesterday when we reported on this? Shout out to the fantasy doctor, PhD, man. He said WNBA teams must report information concerning player injuries.
Early estimates from those tracking the situation put potential fines somewhere in the range of $20,000 when all factors are considered. The underlying tension that many find most significant is not strictly procedural. The Fever are clearly aware that Clark is the primary reason a substantial portion of their ticket-buying audience shows up, withholding her availability status until the last possible moment. And doing so for a home game means those fans were already at the venue or had already committed before learning she would not play. Whether the motive was financial, disciplinary, or a combination of both, the result was the same. Fans felt deceived, and the numbers leaving empty seats behind them made that sentiment visible in a way that is difficult to dismiss. The league's response, when it comes, will indicate how seriously these reporting violations are being treated.
Must report information concerning player injuries, illness, other medical conditions, or rest for all WNBA games by 5 p.m. local time. The day before the game, other than the second day of a back-to-back, teams must designate a participation status and identify a specific injury, illness, other medical conditions, or other reasons for any players whose participation in the game may be affected for any reason. Now, for
Given that the situation involves the sport's highest profile player and a pattern of behavior rather than an isolated incident, the expectation among close observers is that some form of formal action is coming. The question of what fans can actually trust coming out of the Indiana Fever organization has become a genuine and growing problem, particularly for Caitlin Clark supporters who have been burned before. Ticket sales for the upcoming Friday matchup against the Golden State Valkyries had been relatively solid heading into the week, but the context behind those numbers matters. A large portion of those purchases were made by fans anticipating a court showdown between Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin, who was previously a member of the Valkyries roster. Martin is no longer with the team. One of the central draws for that crowd no longer exists. And on top of that, Clark's availability for the game remained uncertain as of Thursday.
the game may be affected for any reason. Now, for the second game of a back-to-back, teams must report the above information by 1 p.m. That's what they're supposed to do. Now, shout out to the homeboy Venom. So Venom did an exclusive, I'm going to say, breakdown immediately after the game. If you guys have not followed Venom, make sure y'all go show Venom some love. And Venom said this on his podcast. Let's listen to what Venom said.
Earlier in the day, Espen had Clark listed as out entirely for the Friday contest. The Fever's official injury report then surfaced with a different designation, probable, citing a back issue. That update placed her on the report as the only Indiana player with a listed status concern. In practical terms, a probable tag suggests a strong likelihood of participation, somewhere in the neighborhood of a 75% chance. But, given the organization's recent track record, the fan response to that designation was far from reassured. That skepticism is not coming from nowhere.
So people thought they bought those tickets ahead of time thinking this is going to be a battle between Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin on the same court. And of course, that's going to sell tickets. Kate Martin is not on the Golden State Valkyries anymore. She's not with the team any longer. So one of the big reasons why people were going to go watch this game, one of the big reasons is no longer there. And hell, we don't even.
The previous evening's game against the Portland Fire ended with over 3,200 empty seats, the lowest attendance in the Clark era. Reports from the arena indicated that supporters who had traveled to the venue and were waiting in line to purchase walk-up tickets saw the late injury notification come through and simply left. Groups of fans turned around and walked away from the building without going inside. The manner in which the prior night's absence was communicated continues to generate significant backlash. Yahoo Sports reported that the WNBA is potentially looking into whether Indiana violated league disclosure rules.
Know if Caitlin Clark's going to play. I want to show you something. Let's start here before we get to the Indiana Fever's post. This is the game preview. Probable starters. Caitlin Clark is not listed. She's not there. Ty Harris is in the point guard position. Okay? So, right here, this was ESPN earlier today.
The day before any game, Clark had not practiced on Tuesday, which under league guidelines should have triggered a report from the team. Instead, Indiana held the announcement until roughly an hour and 20 minutes before tip-off, a decision widely interpreted as a deliberate effort to protect ticket sales for as long as possible. Complicating matters further, is an alternate theory circulating among portions of the fan base that the absence was not injury-related at all, but rather a suspension, stemming from a reported altercation between Clark and an assistant coach. That version of events has not been confirmed, but it has taken hold with enough momentum that any statement coming from the organization is now being read through that lens of suspicion.
Earlier today, ESPN had Caitlin Clark listed as out for Friday's game. Now, again, I mean, we heard there's back stiffness, but there's not a back issue. So there's a back problem. So Caitlin Clark's got a back injury. Well, there's not a problem, stiffness. Well, stiffness is a problem. Back spasms is a problem.
If a suspension did occur and was framed publicly as a physical ailment, the fallout from that kind of deception being exposed would be severe. As of Thursday, Clark's status had shifted again on ESPN's platform to Game Time Decision, a designation that adds yet another layer of ambiguity on top of an already muddled situation. The Valkyries are considered a stronger opponent than the Portland team, Indiana, just defeated, making Clark's presence or absence more meaningful on a competitive level as well. What this sequence of events has done, more than anything else, is deepen a fracture between the Clark fan base and the Fever organization that was already present coming into the season. Last year's prolonged stretch of vague injury updates, non-answers, and day-to-day designations eroded a significant amount of goodwill.
Guys, don't let anybody blow smoke up your ass. Do not do it. Caitlin Clark is probable for tomorrow's game against Golden State. She is the only player on the injury report for Indiana. Here we go. The NFL Fever status report for tomorrow's game versus Golden State. Caitlin Clark, probable, back.
The events of this week have reopened that wound. Fans who flew in from other states, drove long distances, and spent real money on tickets feel they were deliberately kept in the dark to serve the organization's short-term financial interests. That perception, whether entirely accurate or not, is now the operating reality the Fever front office has to contend with going forward. Clark's contract situation has also been a background conversation, with past comments from Clark herself doing little to project certainty about her long-term future in Indiana. None of these threads, taken together, suggest a stable relationship between the league's most prominent player and the team that holds her rights.
We're giving you a 75% chance that Caitlin Clark's going to play. Please buy tickets. Please. Because they were down 3,200 fans last night, and that's tickets not sold. How many actually showed up? There was empty seats freaking everywhere. And it's my understanding that people that were waiting to get in to buy tickets saw the news, and people literally turned around and walked off outside. That people literally, like in throngs, just turned around and walked off. They knew what they were doing. By the way, I think there ought to be an investigation. The word has it, there may be an investigation. Yahoo Sports earlier reported the WNBA may investigate whatever in the hell went on with reporting the injury involving Caitlin Clark. What a joke. Cover up more lies. You suspended her yesterday. Now trying to cover your tracks, traitor. A lot of you guys believe that she was suspended for the altercation between January and her, the assistant coach. God almighty, if they suspended her and that gets out, that leaks out, care to explain how, per Yahoo Sports, you may have violated the rules last night with a last-minute announcement of Caitlin Clark being out?